Christmas at the Chin family penthouse had always been an exercise in endurance. 27 floors above the city with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the financial district. It was the kind of place designed to remind you exactly where you stood in the family hierarchy. This year I stood near the appetizer table watching my older brother Daniel hold court about his latest promotion at Goldman Sachs. He was 34, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and he had our parents' complete attention. "The VP title comes with a significant bump," Daniel was saying. "Plus stock options, performance bonuses, the executive dining room access." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom interrupted, beaming. "Your father and I are so proud." I took a sip of champagne and said nothing. My sister Jennifer sat on the leather sofa, her engagement ring catching the light as she scrolled through her phone. She was 31, a corporate lawyer at one of the city's most prestigious firms, and she'd already announced her engagement 3 times since I'd arrived an hour ago. "The wedding's going to be at the plaza," she said to no one in particular. "Marcus's family knows the events coordinator. It's going to be absolutely spectacular." "As it should be," Aunt Helen said approvingly. "You've earned it, dear." I was 29, standing in a dress I'd bought off the rack at Nordstrom, and as far as my family knew, I ran a small online business that sold artisanal home goods. They weren't entirely wrong. I did run an e-commerce company. They just had no idea what it had become. "Emma." Dad's voice boomed across the living room. "Come over here. Stop hiding by the food." I walked over to where he stood with Daniel and Uncle Richard, my father's brother and business partner in their commercial real estate firm. "Tell Richard about your little shop," Dad said, his tone the particular blend of condescension and amusement he reserved for my career. "The one with the candles and throw pillows." "It's an e-commerce platform," I said evenly. "We sell home goods, yes, but also furniture, decor, kitchen items." "Still playing entrepreneur with your little shop?" Dad laughed, cutting me off. He turned to Richard. "She's been doing this for 5 years now? Still waiting for her to realize it's time to get a real job." Mom appeared at Dad's elbow, her expression sympathetic in that particular way that was somehow worse than mockery. "Emma darling, your father and I have been talking. We have a friend at MetLife who's looking for someone in their marketing department. Entry level, but it's a start. Real benefits, real salary, real career path." "I have a career," I said quietly. "A hobby isn't a career," Mom replied, patting my arm. "It's sweet that you've been trying, really it is. But you're almost 30. It's time to be realistic. Get a real job," Dad added, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "Before you waste any more time on this internet thing." I remained calm. I'd learned years ago that arguing with them only made it worse. Better to let them think what they wanted, let them underestimate me, let them continue believing I was the family disappointment. It had been working well so far. "Have you thought about going back to school?" Jennifer asked from the sofa. "Maybe an MBA? Marcus's firm recruits from several programs. I could get you information." "That's a great idea," Aunt Helen chimed in. "Education is never wasted. And it might help you understand real business." I took another sip of champagne and wondered, not for the first time, why I still came to these gatherings. "Where's this shop of yours located anyway?" Uncle Richard asked. "Do you have a storefront?" "It's online-based," I said. "With a distribution center in New Jersey and—" "Oh, so you work from home?" Richard interrupted. "That explains it. No wonder you're not taking it seriously. Emma, real business happens in offices with teams with structure." "I have all those things," I replied. "In a warehouse in Jersey?" Daniel laughed. "Come on, Em. That's not the same as working in Midtown, dealing with real clients, real pressure, real stakes." "My stakes are plenty real," I said mildly. "What's your revenue?" Daniel challenged. "Seriously, what are you bringing in annually? Because I'm guessing it's barely enough to cover your rent in that Queens apartment." I lived in a 3-bedroom penthouse in Tribeca, but I'd never corrected their assumption that I was struggling in a studio in Queens. Why would I? They'd made up their minds years ago. "I do fine," I said. "Fine isn't impressive," Daniel replied. "Fine is what you say when you're barely scraping by. Jennifer and I, we're doing more than fine. We're building real wealth, real careers. You're selling scented candles on the internet." "Among other things," I agreed. Mom sighed heavily. Emma, we're not trying to be cruel. We love you. We just want you to have security, stability. This online shop thing, it's not sustainable. What happens when the trend changes? When people stop buying from small websites and go back to traditional retail? Then I'll adapt, I said. You shouldn't have to just adapt, Dad said firmly. You should have a career that can weather changes. Like Daniel at Goldman. Like Jennifer at Whitmore and Associates. Like your cousin Michael, he's at McKinsey now, did you hear? I heard. Making $200,000 a year, straight out of his MBA program, Aunt Helen added proudly. Now that's success. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I glanced at it discreetly, a message from my CFO David. Q4 numbers are final. $487 million revenue. 34% growth year over year. Congratulations, boss. I slipped the phone back into my bag. Even your cousin Sarah has a better job than you, Jennifer said, scrolling through Instagram. She's at Facebook now. Senior product manager. Look at her post. She's at some company retreat in Hawaii. Good for Sarah, I said genuinely. Good for Sarah, Daniel mimicked. Emma, when are you going to want good things for yourself? When are you going to aim higher than a hobby business? Maybe she's just not ambitious, Uncle Richard suggested. Some people aren't. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose. The world needs regular workers too. She's ambitious enough to waste 5 years on a failing business instead of building a real career, Dad countered. That takes a special kind of stubbornness. It's not failing, I said quietly. Then show us the numbers, Daniel challenged. Prove it. What's your annual revenue, Emma? What's your profit margin? How many employees do you have? I met his eyes steadily. I'd rather not discuss financials at Christmas dinner. Because there's nothing to discuss, he concluded triumphantly. If you were actually successful, you'd be proud to share it. The fact that you won't tells us everything we need to know. Mom put her arm around my shoulders, her expression pitying. Sweetheart, there's no shame in admitting when something isn't working. You tried, you gave it your best effort, but now it's time to move on to something more practical. Your mother's right, Dad agreed. This time next year I want to see you working at a real company with a real title, making a real salary. Enough of this e-commerce nonsense. I looked around the room at my successful family. At Daniel with his Goldman VP title, at Jennifer with her law firm partnership track, at my parents who owned half the commercial real estate in downtown. They all looked at me with variations of the same expression. Pity, disappointment, concern. Not one of them had ever asked to see my business. Not one had visited my office, met my team, or looked at my actual financials. They'd simply decided years ago that I was the unsuccessful one, and nothing I said or did was going to change that perception. So I'd stopped trying. I should go, I said, checking my watch. I have an early meeting tomorrow. On the day after Christmas? Mom asked, surprised. Business doesn't stop for holidays, I replied. Your shop is open on December 26th? Jennifer looked up from her phone. Emma, that's kind of sad. Even retail stores close on Christmas. E-commerce never closes, I said simply. And I have international clients who don't celebrate Christmas. International clients, Daniel repeated skeptically. Right. Whatever you say. I gathered my coat and bag, accepting perfunctory hugs from my family. Their embraces felt like consolation prizes. Poor Emma, can't even take a day off from her failing business, doesn't even have a boyfriend to spend Christmas with. What a shame. Think about the MetLife position, Mom called after me. I'll email you the contact information. Thanks, Mom. I rode the elevator down from the penthouse, watching the city lights blur past the glass walls. 27 floors of disappointed expectations, failed interventions, and the constant reminder that I was the family's biggest letdown. The elevator doors opened to the building's lobby, a soaring space of marble and chrome that screamed luxury. I nodded to the doorman and stepped out into the cold December night. My office was 12 blocks away, in one of the newest skyscrapers in the financial district. I could walk it in 15 minutes. I needed the air anyway. The streets were relatively empty, most people home with family or at holiday parties. My heels clicked against the sidewalk as I walked, my breath fogging in the cold air. Around me the city glittered, Christmas lights still up, office buildings lit despite the holiday, the constant pulse of New York refusing to pause even for December 25th. My phone rang. David, my CEO. You're supposed to be with family, I answered. I was. Now I'm checking in with my favorite CEO. How was dinner? About what I expected. They still think you're running a candle shop out of your apartment? Essentially. David laughed. You know, most CEOs would have corrected that assumption years ago. Most CEOs don't have families like mine, I replied. How are the Q4 numbers looking beyond the revenue? Strong. EBITDA came in at $94 million, up 41% year-over-year. The new distribution center is performing better than projected. We've cut delivery times by 30% in the Northeast. Customer retention is up. New customer acquisition costs are down. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Any concerns? The usual scaling challenges, some inventory management issues we're working through, the possibility of increased tariffs affecting costs. But nothing we can't handle. Emma, you built something incredible. $487 million in revenue at 29 years old, all organic growth, no VC money, completely bootstrapped. That's insane. It's good, I agreed. But there's always room for improvement. You sound tired. I'm walking to the office. On Christmas night? I need to pick up some documents for tomorrow's meeting. And I wanted to see the holiday lighting we installed in the lobby. You're a workaholic, says my CFO, who's calling me at 9 p.m. on Christmas. David laughed again. Fair point. I'll see you tomorrow at the board meeting. Wouldn't miss it. I ended the call and turned the corner onto Broadway. My building rose ahead, 43 floors of glass and steel, one of the newest additions to the financial district's skyline. The ground floor was all windows, showcasing the modern lobby and the massive installation art piece we'd commissioned. The lobby was empty when I arrived, just the night security guard at his desk. Evening, Miss Chin, he said, surprised. Didn't expect to see you tonight. Just picking up some files, Marcus. How's your Christmas been? Quiet. Kids are happy with their presents. Wife's happy I'll be home tomorrow. Can't complain. Good. Enjoy your night. I walked to the elevator bank, pulling my CEO badge from my bag. The building had state-of-the-art security, access badges coded to specific floors, biometric scanners for sensitive areas, the whole 9 yards. I'd approved the system myself when we'd moved the headquarters here 18 months ago. I pressed my badge to the elevator scanner. The system beeped, processing. Then, in a clear automated voice that echoed through the marble lobby, "Welcome back, Chief Executive Officer. Access granted to executive level." The elevator doors slid open. Behind me, I heard Marcus's radio crackle to life. Then another voice, confused. "Wait, the CO badge just activated. Is Miss Chin in the building?" "Yeah," Marcus replied, looking at me. "She just went up." I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 41st floor. The executive level, where my office occupied the corner with views of both the East River and Lower Manhattan. The doors began to close. Then they stopped. Someone had pressed the lobby call button. The doors opened again to reveal my brother Daniel, his coat half on, his expression stunned. Behind him, Jennifer was climbing out of a taxi, her phone pressed to her ear. Mom and Dad were crossing the street from their building, having clearly seen me walk past. "What the hell?" Daniel said. "Did that announcement just say?" The elevator doors started to close again. I pressed the hold button. "Chief Executive Officer," I confirmed. "Yes, it did." "You're the CEO?" Jennifer demanded, reaching the lobby. "CEO of what?" "Homelux Technologies," I said. "We're an integrated e-commerce and logistics platform specializing in home goods, furniture and lifestyle products. $487 million in revenue this year. About 340 employees globally. Headquarters here, distribution centers in New Jersey, California and Texas. International operations in Canada and the UK." The silence in the lobby was absolute. Marcus was staring at his computer screen, clearly pulling up building information. "Homelux Technologies," he read aloud. "Occupies floors 38 through 41. Primary tenant, Emma Chin." He looked up at me. "I'm so sorry, Miss Chin, I had no idea. We always just called you Emma." "That's fine, Marcus. I prefer it." Mom had gone pale. "This building. You work in this building. This is the Morrison Tower. This is one of the most expensive." We don't just work here, I said calmly. We lease 4 floors. About 60,000 square feet of space. It was the most practical location for headquarters. Close to transit, good infrastructure, room to grow. Dad was staring at the elevator at my badge at me. Homelux. I've heard of Homelux. There was an article in the journal last month about them disrupting traditional retail. That was us, I confirmed. We've been fortunate with our growth. Fortunate. Daniel's voice cracked. Emma, $487 million. That's not a small business. That's not a hobby. That's a real company, I finished. With real employees, real revenue, real profits. Yes. Jennifer had her phone out, frantically Googling. Forbes listed Homelux as one of the fastest-growing private companies in America. Number 47 on the list. Valued at approximately $1.2 billion. Founder and CEO Emma Chin, age 29. She looked up, her expression shocked. You're worth over $900 million? On paper, I said. The company valuation is based on recent funding offers, which I've declined. Actual liquid net worth is significantly lower. Maybe $200 million depending on the day. $200 million, Mom whispered. Give or take. Most of that's tied up in company equity. I pay myself a modest salary, $300,000 annually, and reinvest the rest into growth. The elevator had been holding for almost 2 minutes now. I could see people starting to notice from the street. My family clustered in the lobby, me standing in the open elevator wearing my CEO badge. I really do need to get upstairs, I said. I have documents to review for tomorrow's board meeting. Board meeting, Dad repeated faintly. You have a board? 5 members including myself. We meet quarterly, though we do special sessions as needed. Tomorrow's is about expansion into the European market and a potential acquisition of a German furniture company. German furniture company, Jennifer echoed. €180 million deal, I said. Should close by February if negotiations go well. Daniel had sat down on one of the lobby's modern benches, his face pale. I don't understand. How, when, why didn't you tell us? Why would I? I asked simply. You'd all decided I was running a failing hobby business. Correcting you seemed like a waste of energy. A waste of, Emma, we're your family. You're the family who spent the last 5 years mocking my career at every holiday, every dinner, every phone call. The family who told me to get a real job, to give up on my dreams, to accept that I wasn't as successful as Daniel or Jennifer or cousin Michael. Because we didn't know. Mom protested. Because you didn't ask, I corrected gently. I invited you to visit my office 3 years ago. You said you were too busy. I mentioned we were expanding internationally. You asked if I'd finally hired a real employee or if I was still doing everything myself. I told you we'd moved to a bigger headquarters. You suggested I was wasting money on overhead. The lobby doors opened and Uncle Richard walked in, having clearly been summoned by someone. He stopped short, taking in the scene. Me in the elevator, my family clustered in shock, Marcus watching from his desk. What's going on? Richard demanded. Emma is the CEO of a billion-dollar company, Jennifer said numbly. That's what's going on. Richard laughed. What? No, she runs that little online shop. Homelux Technologies, I said. We're valued at $1.2 billion. $487 million in revenue this year. Profitable since year 2. Currently exploring expansion into Europe and Asia-Pacific markets. Richard's laugh died. You're serious? Extremely. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Just saw the building security log. Your family there? Want backup? I typed back. I'm fine. See you tomorrow. I have to go, I told my family. Like I said, I have documents to review. Wait, Dad said. Emma, wait. We need to talk about this. Do we? Because I've been trying to talk to you about my business for 5 years. And you've never been interested. That's not fair. Isn't it? I released the hold button. You decided I was a failure, Dad. You, Mom, Daniel, Jennifer. You all decided I wasn't worth taking seriously. And now you're upset because you were wrong. The elevator doors started to close. Emma, please, Mom called. We're sorry. We didn't understand. You didn't try to understand, I replied as the doors met. There's a difference. The elevator began its smooth ascent, the numbers ticking up. 10, 15, 20. Through the glass walls I could see the city spreading below me. Thousands of lit windows, millions of people, infinite possibilities. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called. Then Jennifer. Then Daniel. I turned my phone to silent and watched the city lights blur past. The elevator reached the 41st floor and opened to the executive suite. The lights were motion-activated, flickering on as I stepped into the hallway. Our company logo, a stylized house that doubled as an abstract letter H, glowed on the wall in brushed steel. My office was at the end of the hall, corner position, floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The city stretched out below me in all directions. To the east, the Brooklyn Bridge lit against the night sky. To the south, the Statue of Liberty's torch glowing in the harbor. To the north, the endless grid of Manhattan's streets, each building a story, each window a life. I built this. Not my family's connections, not my father's real estate empire, not my brother's Goldman Sachs credentials. Just me, a laptop, a small warehouse in New Jersey, and an idea that people wanted better, faster, more personalized ways to buy things for their homes. 5 years ago, I'd been working from my apartment, packaging orders myself, learning logistics and supply chain management from YouTube videos and industry blogs. My family had called it cute, charming, a phase. Now I employed 340 people. I'd turned down multiple acquisition offers from Amazon and Walmart. Forbes had called me one of the most promising young entrepreneurs in e-commerce. And my family had spent Christmas dinner telling me to get a real job. My phone lit up on my desk. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from family members. I ignored them and pulled up the acquisition documents for tomorrow's board meeting. The German furniture company Holzwerk GmbH had manufacturing capabilities we wanted and a customer base in markets we'd been trying to crack. The €180 million price tag was steep but justified. I worked for 2 hours, reviewing contracts, checking financial projections, making notes for tomorrow's discussion. The city lights glittered below me, and somewhere out there my family was probably still gathered in that lobby, trying to process what they'd learned. At midnight I finally checked my messages. Dad, Emma, please call me. We need to talk. Mom, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please come back. Daniel, this is insane. Call me. Jennifer, why didn't you tell us? We're family. And one from David. Whatever happened with your family, remember, you don't owe them explanations. You built this yourself. That's yours, not theirs. I smiled and locked my phone. The documents for tomorrow were ready. The Q4 numbers were strong. The European expansion looked promising. My company, my real job, my actual career was exactly where I wanted it to be. I gathered my things and headed back to the elevator. As I pressed my badge to the scanner, the system announced again, "Good night, Chief Executive Officer." The lobby was empty when I reached the ground floor. Marcus nodded to me as I passed. "Have a good night, Ms. Chin." "You too, Marcus." Outside, the December air was sharp and cold. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking toward home, my 3-bedroom Tribeca penthouse with views of the Hudson, paid for entirely with my little shop's profits. My phone rang one more time. Mom again. This time I answered. "Emma, thank God. Where are you?" "We've been so worried." "I'm heading home," I said calmly. "We need to talk about this. About your company, about why you didn't tell us." "There's not much to discuss, Mom. You asked if I had a real job." "I do. You wanted to know if I was building a real career." "I am. You told me to get serious about my future. I'm worth $200 million. I'd say I took your advice." "That's not fair," Mom protested. "If we'd known." "You would have what? Been proud? Taken me seriously? Stopped treating my work like a hobby?" I paused at the corner, waiting for the light to change. "The problem wasn't that you didn't know, Mom. The problem is that you never asked. So this is punishment. You let us think you were struggling just to, prove a point." "No," I said quietly. "I let you think what you wanted to think because correcting you was exhausting. Every time I tried to tell you about my company, you dismissed it. Every achievement I mentioned, you minimized. So I stopped mentioning them. I built my business, I grew my company, and I let you believe whatever made you comfortable." "Emma, I have a board meeting at 9 a.m., I interrupted. Then meetings with my executive team, a call with our European expansion consultants, and a dinner with potential investors. I need to sleep. When can we talk? Really talk? I don't know, Mom. When you're ready to listen instead of lecture, I suppose. I ended the call and slipped my phone into my pocket. The streets were nearly empty now, just the occasional taxi passing, the ever-present hum of the city that never truly slept. My building rose ahead, its doorman already moving to open the door as he saw me approaching. Evening, Miss Chin. Good Christmas. Interesting, I replied. Very interesting. The holidays will do that, he said with a knowing smile. I rode the elevator up to my penthouse, kicked off my heels and poured myself a glass of wine. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glittered, millions of lights, endless possibilities, a world I'd conquered through patience, strategy, and the quiet determination my family had mistaken for lack of ambition. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Daniel. For what it's worth, what you've built is incredible. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Thank you. That actually means something. His response came immediately. Can we start over? Maybe I could visit your office sometime? See what you've really built. I smiled and typed, maybe. After the holidays, after things settle. Because that was the thing about family, they could disappoint you, underestimate you, dismiss you for years. But they were still family. And sometimes when they were finally ready to see you for who you really were, you gave them that chance. Not right away. Not on their terms. But eventually. After all, I'd built a $1.2 billion company from nothing. I could certainly manage one complicated family. Though honestly, the billion-dollar company had been easier. I raised my wine glass to my reflection in the window. To the CEO they'd never seen coming, to the success they'd never believed possible, to the real job they told me to get while I was busy building an empire. Merry Christmas to me, I said to the empty penthouse, to the city lights, to the future I'd created entirely on my own terms. My phone stayed silent the rest of the night. The board meeting was at 9 a.m. And I had a German furniture company to acquire.